Hey everybody, welcome back to the Jesus in a Dream podcast. I'm Caleb. This is Zach, and we believe that with Jesus in a Dream, anything is possible, nothing is impossible, and the possibilities are endless. Zach, I talk to people a lot. I know a lot of people. It's basically what I do with a lot of my days. Here is something that I hear. I don't really like my job, or I really don't feel fulfilled right now, or I don't really know what my purpose is. I don't know what my dreams are. I don't know what I want to be when I grow up. I just feel like the season of life isn't very enjoyable. I just don't know what to do. And if you have said any of those things, and if you are currently in any one of those places, we're here to help. We believe we have the solution. And I say that unashamedly and very confidently that you can enjoy your life where you are right now, and that it can build, and that it can build momentum, and that you can live a life that you do dream of, and that your dreams can become your realities. And that's why we're doing Jesus in a Dream podcast. And that's why our brand is to enjoy life and build God's kingdom. And so that's what we want to talk about today. But first, before we get to the solution, we got to talk about the problem, obviously. We got to know that there is a solution, and we got to believe that we can get there. But we got to start with the problem. And I believe the problem for most people is that wherever they are right now, they believe that it just doesn't matter, whether it's in their career, or maybe it's in their relationships, or whether it's at the church that they're going to. They probably believe a lie, like we both have, and that's why we're so confident in this. We're speaking from experience here. This isn't just us like projecting this onto you or just guessing, but the reality is that sometimes people don't have fun with where they're at. Why do you think that is? Like, what do you think is happening? I know we talked about, the lie of what matters and what doesn't. I'd love to hear your insight on that.
Yeah, I think obviously what you're doing, if it is life-giving to who you are, because obviously, right, there are some people who could do a job and like, this is the greatest thing I've ever done, and some people are like, oh, I'd hate that, I could never do that. And that is just based on like who you are as a person and that kind of stuff. But a really easy way to figure it out, which is something you actually told me a long time ago, was if you said, or you told me, if I asked you to do one thing for me forever for free, what would that thing be? Because then it narrows it down to what's the thing that is always life-giving, no matter what the circumstances. Because, right, everyone's like, oh, yeah, I'd flip burgers at McDonald's for $1 million a year. I'd love to do that. And it's like, because that's the whole thing is like, how much money can I pay you to do this? Okay, flipping burgers was a bad example, but, let's say some awful job and it's like, well, I'll just pay you a lot of money to do it. And then you're like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll do it. But then it's like, what if we remove the money? Well, of course not. I'm not going to do that. So then it's like, okay, what would you do for if I never paid you for it? And then that you'd be like, oh, well, there's this one thing I've always enjoyed to do. And for me, that would be like if you asked me to workshop short films, and you're not like, if you were saying I'm going to write a novel every year, would you help me workshop the story and I won't pay you for it? I'd be like, yeah, that sounds like fun. That would be life-giving to me. I would enjoy that. And I would not care that you never paid me for it. And so it's like, there's something that we found, okay, I'm zoning in on a passion of mine. And so I think that's the thing, is there's something there that people are not, it's not life-giving. It doesn't lean into their passions. And obviously that's where a lot of that sense of what am I doing with my life comes from, is that, or people they don't see an impact in people around them. And so they're like, what am I, like, if you identify a problem that you're passionate about, but you're not doing anything for that, I think that is very dissatisfying in your life. Cause you're like, I see where I want to be. I see a problem. I see something that needs a solution, and I know I'm capable of putting something towards that solution, but I'm not doing any of that, or I'm stuck in a place that I can't do it. I think that's deeply unsatisfying, and that is definitely a very frustrating place to be, for sure.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head of this is the problem, I think, in most people's lives, wherever they see themselves in their life, is they're either, not doing something that they feel like is fulfilling or that they're passionate about, and they don't see why it matters. Why does my job matter? Why do I matter? Why is where I'm spending most of my time matters? What is that doing to impact the world? And I believe we do have some solutions today to that mindset and to that feeling. And let me just say this, that it's completely valid. That if you aren't doing something you're passionate about doing, and if you can't see why what you're doing right now matters, then it will feel unfulfilling, as it should. And I believe that we are called as Christians to understand who God is, how he interacts with us, and how the world operates, his design, his systems that he has created from the beginning of time. There's nothing new under the sun. And I think those two things, passion and ignorance, are two indicators that God has placed in his design to say, hey, something is wrong. Something is wrong. Like if you don't feel passionate about something, something is wrong. If you can't see why where I have you right now matters, something is wrong. And so this is to help you get to a solution. It isn't just to sit there and go, woe is me, or like something's wrong with me, or I'm broken, or whatever, and I'm going to stay that way. No, that's why we created this podcast, is to provide solutions to people to help you move forward. And so if you feel this way, awesome. Welcome to the podcast. We hope that we can help. We believe that we can help. We believe God led you here for a reason. But let's talk about these two things. So passion and not seeing why what you do matters. I'm going to start with the second one, because the second one is something that can be addressed right now, that you can immediately grow into getting to the solution, where you don't have to change anything about your life. You just have to change your perspective. And I'm going to share a story, and Zach is going to share a story of why it doesn't matter what you're doing. Wherever God has you right now, like, it is his timing, it is his plan, and it's more about your relationship with him than what you're doing. And I believe that is the solution to the second problem of not seeing why what you're doing matters. Is you need to flip your perspective on how you see God, how you see yourself, and how you see how God is using you to build his kingdom in the world. And so here's a story I want to share. In 2019, in the fall of 2019, my best friend Mallory was in her third trimester of being pregnant. She passed out while having a glass in her hand, a drinking glass in her hand, passed out, the glass smashed, cut her throat. She ended up dying. Her baby ended up dying. And I know I say it like super fast. That's not the point of the story. The point of the story is, of this story right now, of why I'm saying it right now, is it was the worst day of my life. Like, hands down, the worst day of my life. I got the call. I was one of the first ones to the hospital with her husband, Josh. And I was the one who had to go out and call friends and family and say, Mallory passed away. And so it was obviously very traumatizing, obviously the worst day of my life. Not even 2 hours after I get the news, I have to do all these things. I bawl my eyes out. My pastor Tim, and my friend Jesse, and my friend Sarah took me out to lunch just at the restaurant across the street from the hospital. And, we get sat down, and the server comes by, and, she goes, "How's it going today, guys?" And at that point, like, I had composed myself. Like, I'm sure she could probably see something was like off or wrong, but I was just like, oh, it's good, like, order the food, be polite. I didn't give her the whole story or whatever. And she like did her job, and like I got food in my stomach and was able to like calm down and like all of this stuff. But later, when I was thinking about that, I thought about how so I work at Dunn Brothers part-time, and I usually am in the drive-through window. I just love that for some reason. I just love that interaction with people. And so I was thinking about that server in relation to who I am and what my role is in people's lives as a drive-through person. And just realizing that, wow, like, she probably had zero clue I was having the literal worst day of my life. And I was thinking to myself, I wonder how many people come through this drive-through that I hand the coffee to, and they are having the worst day of their life, or just a bad day in general. Like something's gone wrong. They're going through a divorce. Their pet died. They can't pay the bills. Whatever's going on in their life. And that God really used that perspective shift in my mind to make what I do at Dumb Brothers really, really, really matter. Because I realized that even though I was looking at the job of serving coffee as non-consequential, I realized I was having interactions with people every single day. And those interactions, as inconsequential or insignificant as we think they are, I don't believe that there's any insignificance in God's kingdom. Everything matters. He has ordained everything. How I treated those people in those moments of when I give them coffee, when I give them a smile, is the product up to their standards? Does it come quickly? Am I providing the most convenience that I can to this person? Am I providing a connection with another human being who acknowledges their existence and that they matter, without even saying anything that's super deep, but it's just saying like, man, they could be having a terrible day. And even if they're not, they still matter to God. And so they should matter to me. And what I'm doing as a part of their day should be done to the best of my ability and should be done in a way that pleases God, but also pleases them. Like that matters. And I think that matters to God. And so what I could say for probably like 95% of jobs is you have some sort of human interaction throughout your day. That human interaction matters. It matters so much, and it matters more than you will ever know unless you take the time to think about the intentionality in which you do your job and the intentionality of which God has placed you in this job to come across these people every single day or once in a while. And something that I've always said to myself is God doesn't call you to places. He calls you to people. Like he didn't call you to that job. He called you to the people at the job. He didn't call you to that state. He called you to the people in that state. He didn't call you to that neighborhood. He called you to the people in that neighborhood. And he didn't call you to just your family unit, but he called you to be the husband or the wife or the mother, the father, or grandfather, aunt, uncle to those people, trusting you with them that you would do everything to the best of your ability according to your responsibility. And so when it comes to the question of, does this matter? Yes, because the people matter. No matter what your job is, you're helping them in some way, whether they're a customer, a coworker, or your boss, you are helping them. Put it in that framework that you are helping people by just being present. And that can possibly change your entire perspective of what you are doing right now and that it matters.
Yeah, that's super good. I'm going to add one thing onto what you were sharing of, I think when people are having the worst day of their life and they go and get coffee and it's bad service, that is always when they retell the worst day of their life. That's like the last straw, right? And they're like, this happened. And then the coffee was terrible. Like, and everyone's like, oh man, that sucks. So
when it rains, it pours type of thing.
Yeah. Right? But on the flip side, it's like when you're having a rough day and then someone goes the extra mile for you and you think, I don't know this person. Yet they went the extra mile for me, and it can totally, shift, even if it's a slight shift in the trajectory of your day or your week, it's worth it then to do that. And, and like slightly, it's like that person was like, well, you know what, that guy was really nice. And I feel at least 1% better about my day, and then I think that's, what God honors for sure. But yeah, I'll share a story here. So yeah, I'll share a story here that speaks to, which it's a frustrating thing. I hear this probably every Sunday, right? You leave church and the closing thing they say is, now just go out there and, do your best and glorify God, and in your workplace. Everyone's like, what in the world does that actually look like? Right? Like you're saying, in your case, it's being intentional with these people coming through, but some people's it looks different, and they have to have tough conversations with people, or their workplace is really toxic, and it's like, how do you show that? And so I'll kind of share a little story that I heard from another podcast where I was actually producing the podcast for these guys. So his story's not out yet, but it was awesome. It was a really good story. This guy was living just the lifestyle for himself. I think he had some church experience when he was younger, but he just completely left the faith, was just, I'm here to live life and I'm going to live life how I want to live it. And he was searching for the one thing he could never find was joy and satisfaction in his identity and in his life. And here's the part that comes into play. He had a coworker that he was like, she never preached to me. She never, sat me down and was like, listen, we're going to talk about Jesus, or something. But he said everybody knew in the office, everybody knew she was a Christian, and she worked hard, and everybody looked up to her because she was just a great example of a hardworking, honest person, and everybody knew she was a Christian. So they all kind of made the connection. It's like, oh yeah, that's why she works really hard and does a great job. But he was like, I also saw that she just was like joyful in her life and was just happy in her life. And it had nothing to do with the actual work. It wasn't like on this specific project, she said this, it was like, I think they worked in, marketing and advertising. So it was something that had, nothing to do with, they didn't work in a ministry or wasn't anything adjacent to church culture. It was just as through and through of a regular, normal business you can be. And he literally said that saved his life, because he said, if I can't figure out how to like enjoy life, I don't want to live it. And he's like, I just can't. I'm with all these people who are saying, oh, try this and do that. And he's like, none of us were actually enjoying life. We're all just lying to ourselves, because none of us could figure out him and like his community and his friends. And they all just were like in that place of just trying to enjoy life. And I mean, it's very clear in the Bible, is like, you go after sin and it leads to death. And that's what he said. He's like, it was a road to death. And I started seeing that it was leading that way, and I didn't like that, but I didn't know where else to go. And so literally just that exposure of working alongside a Christian who was a good example of Christ. And I just love the fact that he was like, she didn't preach at me, and she didn't pull him aside and say, hey, we're going to talk about your faith today or something. He was just like, she was there. And then I knew that, hey, you know what? Maybe that's the direction I need to go. Maybe God is the avenue. Maybe faith is the avenue. And that was that small 1% change in his trajectory that started, just the ball rolling that way. And that's what he says. He pinpoints it to that moment of, that was his thought of, I'm going to go this way. And then his story is he met with a Christian counselor that started once again to push him in that direction towards God and all that stuff. And now he's obviously like changed my life. And I love that he pinpoints it onto that person just working alongside him as a Christian. And I think for a lot of people listening to this, if you are trying to be that person, there's probably a lot of eyes on you, but you're not going to know what, like the chances of that happening were, right, somebody comes back years later and says, you know what, you're the reason that I'm saved. That might never happen. You might never see, the fruit of that, but it's happening. And like this story, I was like, finally, I have actual story, right, of why you should keep. So my wife works in an ad agency. She works at an ad agency, and it's the same thing. She's like, it's hard. There's barely any grace and mercy. It's not part of the work culture. Like, people are awesome. People are nice, but they, you mess up, and that's a big deal. And people aren't easy to forgive. And she's like, so I'm trying to be that person that she'll tell me people mess up and they're like, oh, I'm so sorry. And she's like, oh, it's all right. People mess up. I'm going to show you forgiveness, grace, and mercy, because that's what I believe. And everybody is like deeply grateful for her. And like, oh, thank you. Like, oh my goodness. I was like worried I was going to get chewed out and, repercussions of consequences. And Tori's like, it's all right. We all make mistakes. And it's like, that's the kind of stuff that I think is that moment where, yeah, she would tell you that, like, the actual things that she does at an ad agency, like her actually, a commercial for a car, that's not changing people's lives, right? But her sitting there working hard and glorifying God, it is changing lives. Behind the scenes, you're not going to see a lot of it come through, but it's those small shifts that really matter. Yeah, that's the story there.
Yeah, that's really good. Another thing that I'll add, besides the human piece, which should be the first piece that makes you go, this does matter, but also the work of your hands does matter. Whatever God has you doing right now, it does matter. And especially if you feel like you've been obedient to God and been saying yes to him, and you find yourself in a place where it's like, I probably wouldn't have chose this, but here I am. And then I would say it requires another perspective shift. We can hear the garbage trucks outside, and this is something that I've told several people, is like, being a garbage man isn't, society probably looks at that and goes like, that's a job I would never want to do. Right. And if you found yourself being a garbage man and it wasn't something that you're like passionate about, which I believe that there are probably people who are passionate about like waste management and all that stuff. And I'm going to tell you why they're probably passionate about it here. And this is something that you can do for literally any job that you find yourself in. It just involves an intentional thinking and a perspective shift. Is like, I love my garbage man. I really do. Because my garbage man comes by once a week and he removes all of the smelly, nasty stuff that I don't even want to touch, that I don't want to deal with, that I don't want to take to the landfill myself. And he comes directly to my door, takes away that stuff, and he makes my house a safe place. He makes my house a better smelling place. He makes my house a more hospitable place. He makes my house a place that Zach wants to come over and my cat can survive in, and that my sister and I can live in. And without the garbage man, my life would suck. It would probably suck. It would be a lot harder than it is right now. And so I hope that Mr. Garbage Man out there understands what he is doing for myself and for my neighborhood and for my community, because I believe that will give him new purpose for his life. Now, I just did that with the garbage man. And this is not me saying that they are lower in society or anything, but I would probably say that most people look at that and go like, that's something I wouldn't want to do. But after I just described it, now I'm ready to take out the trash. Like, yeah, let's go. Like, I will serve my community in this way. Whatever it is that you do, if you've been saying yes to Jesus and you find yourself in a place, you need to be able to figure out, how are you helping people? And deep it. Like, go deep into it. Don't, like, it's what I just said, none of that was super spiritual. It was very practical of how my life is better because of the garbage man. Why his profession matters and why he's impacting my ability to live. And whatever you're doing, if you're saying yes to Jesus, you should be able to do that. And I keep saying if you're saying yes to Jesus, because I do believe that, I don't know if these people are listening to this, but there are people who do not say yes to Jesus, who are in professions, and I believe that there are jobs out there that only exist to move money around and aren't necessarily helping anybody. In fact, they might be negatively affecting people. And if you find yourself in one of those jobs and you find yourself listening to this podcast and you actually sit and think about it and think deeply about it and go, I don't see how I'm helping other people, then you need to leave. Or you need to, let me back up. Before I say you need to leave, you need to seek the Lord. Because if you haven't been saying yes to him, that's probably how you ended up in one of those jobs anyway. But you can make any job the work of your hands, like most jobs, I should say, especially if you're saying yes to Jesus. Like, it matters. It matters what you're doing, and it matters who you're around. Let's jump over to the second piece of this, which is passion. I describe passion as like the original, etymology of the word means something that you're willing to suffer for, which I would agree, like that is what passion is. But passion, I think, is also what makes your heart burn, and what makes your heart burn is probably what you find enjoyable. And that's why My Mountain is about enjoying life and building God's kingdom. We want to partner with the Holy Spirit, with the gifts that he has given us, that like however we enjoy most helping people, that's where we want to find ourselves in our careers. And that's like why I started My Mountains, because I want to spend a majority of my time, of my working time, doing what I love to do most, helping people the best way that I can. And I would say most people have that desire within them, whether it's art or music or film or business or family or adoption or organ donation or whatever it might be. God has given us all different passions, all different things that we enjoy. That the Lord is leading you in that way so that you spend your time doing those things. And you might find yourself in a place right now where it's like, I can't spend a ton of time doing this. And that is okay. However, I would say that the Lord has more for you in those areas, and the Lord cares very deeply about your gifts and passions, and the Lord is just waiting for you to ask him to give you more opportunities, to give you more time spent there, to give you more relationships in that area, to give you more resources and platforms in that area. And that's what we built My Mountain on, is like we're asking the Lord for those things for our own life. And I believe that it is a thing where you have to ask for it in order for the Lord to give it to you. It doesn't just happen upon you, because as we just stated, passion is something that you have to suffer for, and there's sacrifice within it. And if you're not praying in that and asking for more opportunity or more time spent within your passions, you're probably never going to find that solution. And that's why we're saying is like the solution is possible. I believe God promises these things, but it's something that you need to pray for and expect, and then apply yourself in, because most of the time it's probably not just going to fall into your lap.
Yeah, I think it's a crazy thing to think about, that we all have a passion of some sort of another, and yet a lot of us don't know what it is. And it's kind of a weird thing, because it's like, I'm just too busy to like sit down and figure that out. Because sometimes it takes a lot to figure out, and it takes a lot of prayer and a lot of focus on God to be like, what is this piece of me that like, I don't know how it exactly looks like. And because I mean, that's a common question of like, oh, if you could have any job, what would you do? Or like, if you could do anything in the world, what would you do? And it's a great question, because it gets people thinking. And I feel like the majority of the answers are like, yeah, but that would never happen. Or like, I could never actually do that. And it's like, well, why not? You know, it's like clearly, and I'm just a big believer in where you are right now is God preparing you for the future in one way or another. Like he's preparing your mindset, or he's preparing you with skills, or he's preparing you to like go through experiences so that you're better equipped. And I think there's so much of that, right, you look at your passion, and if you figured out your passion, you're like, oh, this is what I want to do, but I don't understand how to get there because I'm here right now. And it's like, okay, there's a skill that you need to pursue your passion that you're not going to know you had until you've learned it here. And like, I'll just pull off of a local film director that I was talking to a couple weeks ago, and he was telling me his first job was selling and trading baseball cards for a little baseball trading card like shop that was in his town. And he's like, that was the best job I ever had, because I was so confident in how to talk with people and negotiate with people. And he's like, that was an absolutely essential skill for what I do today. And he was like, you wouldn't know it when you're 14 years old. And because he said he went to sell and trade cards, and they said, you're really good, want to work? And he's like, sure, I'll work. And he was like, that was an amazing job. And it's like, you would never think like, oh yes, someone, for in my case, like someone in the film world, it's like, what got you here? It's like, well, buying and selling baseball cards. You'd be like, what? Those are completely unrelated, right? But there's like skills that go along with that, and things that God prepares you for, and all that stuff. And so I think, I would just encourage people to, and this is back to our, pick a deadline and go after it, is like, if you don't know what that passion looks like, just, pick a day 2 weeks out from now and say, by this day, I'm going to try and figure out what that is. And then each day try and make steps towards that, and just think about it and pray about it. And, think about variations of things that you like, or just, I don't know, just really, I'm all into like, just lean on the Lord and read the Bible, and something's going to jump out in the Bible and be like, whoa, I've never read that before. And then that's going to start leading you down like a thought path that'll be, oh, maybe this is, some version of this is what I want to do. And I also would say maybe you figure out what you're passionate about, but it doesn't fall into a specific job description. I think that shouldn't matter too much. Like if you're like, oh, I know I want to help these kinds of people, but I don't know what you call that job. And it's like, well, it doesn't need to have a job title, as long as you've like figured it out. Maybe it doesn't have a job title because you need to be the one to make it a job title. But
that's good.
I kind of answered some of those questions there.
No, that's really good. And I think I'm going to connect the two ideas of what I do matters and the passion within you. be passionate about the Lord first. Be passionate about getting to know him, praying, sitting in his presence, reading his word. Be passionate about people second. Be passionate about helping people however you can, whether that involves your passion or not. Just wherever you find yourself, always help people. Be passionate about that. Lean on the Holy Spirit. He'll give you the solutions to help people. And then thirdly, be passionate about what it is that you enjoy, the gifts that God has given you. And I'm going to give you a couple questions that if you're listening to this and you might be saying, yeah, I don't know what I'm passionate about, or I don't know what my dream job is. I'm going to give you some questions that, just like Zach said, like, take some time and some intentional time. Don't just like hear me say that and go, oh, like those are good questions. Like, yes, I know they're good questions. Think about them and answer them. Here are the questions to help you figure out what you may be passionate about and maybe where the Lord is leading you into the future. When do I feel most alive? 2, what people, when I'm around them, make me feel most alive? 3, what do I do to help other people that make me feel most alive? What gets me excited? Who are the groups of people that get me excited? What can I spend hours doing and it feels like it's only been a couple of seconds? Zach said one earlier. What would I do the rest of my life for free? Start there. And I think these are just deeper variations of what do you want to do when you grow up, and what do you dream about, and what are you passionate about? And I believe that throughout your entire life, your passion has always been there. You were created with it. I'm telling you, it was a gift from God. He knew what you were going to enjoy because he put it there. And it's not like, you know it from a very young age. Like most hobbies and things like stick with you. Like occasionally, like we'll pick up like a hobby or something we enjoy like later in life. But even in those things, I could probably look back at those people's lives and go, oh yeah, this is what led them to that. And this is why they enjoy it, because they've had these different experiences. And so look at throughout your life and go, yeah, when did I feel most alive? And what did I do that really like brought me to life when I helped them? And what group of people, when I say group of people, I mean, is it orphans? Is it youth kids? Is it the elderly? Is it businessmen? Is it pastors? Is it, you name it. There's groups of people that you are attracted to and that make you feel alive when you're around them, and especially when you are helping them. And I believe those things are like the breadcrumbs to your destiny, that those things will lead you back to what God planted in you the day you were born, but will also lead you forward into whatever it is he has for you. And I'm just going to reiterate this, and then I think we're almost, at our time here, is God will take you as far as you are willing to go. God is a gentleman. God does not force you to do anything. And like a good father, he wants you to ask him for more. And John 3 says he gives the Holy Spirit without limit. The Holy Spirit, you've heard me say this before, if you've been listening to me for any amount of time, the Holy Spirit is one person. You either have him or you don't. And so for those of us who have him, what does that mean? It means that God has given him without limit. He is not limited what the Holy Spirit is allowed to do in our lives. So who limits the Holy Spirit? It's us. We are the ones who put up the limits. We are the ones who press the brakes. We are the ones who put up the boundaries and put up the walls and say, I'll go here and no further, when God is saying, I have so much more for you if you just continue to say yes, and I will guide you, and I'll give you the grace, and I'll give you the strength, and I'll show you why you don't have to be afraid of that, and I'll give you the resources, and I'll give you the platforms, and I'll give you the relationships, and I will take you to your heart's desire. Psalm 37. And when we're passionate about the Lord and we're passionate about other people, we are allowed to ask for these things. And so that's what I would say is we say it every podcast. It's because we believe it. You need to pray. Prayer is the greatest tool that you have in chasing Jesus in a dream. It will get you the best results. You'll know who God is. You'll know who you are better, and you'll know how you'll help this world. And so to wrap it up, and I'll let Zach give some closing remarks if he would like. We started out with like, man, I hate my job. or I don't see why what I do matters. Let me just tell you, this is me telling you, wherever you're at right now matters. You need to start by going to God and seeing why it matters. And then you need to look at the people around you and say, how can I help them? And then once you figure out how you can help them, then you can start looking at how can I help them better? And that's usually going to come out of however you enjoy life most by helping other people. And so that's why we so firmly believe that like we're going to enjoy life. The Holy Spirit, the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy. We're going to love God. We're going to love other people. That is going to produce joy in our lives where we can enjoy our life no matter what we're doing. But we do want to get to a place where it's like we're doing what we love most of the time.
Yeah, that's really good. I think the last thing I'll say is on your idea of it's us who presses the brakes. And I think there's a lot of two sides of like fear in that of like, I don't want to like be the one pressing the brakes. I want to like trust God, but at the same time you're like, or you're afraid and you're like, well, let's hit the brakes here. This is happening too fast. And I'll share a really quick story of this was like literally a couple days ago. We were playing softball and I was like, my stomach wasn't feeling good. And I was like, oh my goodness, I am not prepared for this. And I'm really tired, but I really want to play. It was like one of our last games. I was like excited, but at the same time I was like, I was like upset because I was like, I'm just not like physically or mentally in the right headspace and all this stuff. And I was like, God, I just really want to like enjoy this game and it's going to be rough and I'm not excited and I'm irritated. That's going to be one of the last games and I'm not going to enjoy it. And the Holy Spirit was quick to say, I'll play if you play. And I was like, you show up and I'll show up. I was like, you go and I'll go with you. And it was just this very like, I don't know, it was a really quick moment. And all of a sudden I was like, okay, yeah, I'll play. I'll put my heart into this. Let's go. Let's do this. And instantly, like, I thought that if I were to, go into it with excitement and not be worried about, oh, my stomach's feeling gross. I don't know if I'm going to like run too hard because it was super hot. And I was like, I don't want to like throw up on the sidelines. Right. And it was just like, no, like, let's do this. You want to show up and I'll show up. You don't want to show up. I'm not going to show up. It was like, if you want to complain and sit on the sidelines and say, oh God, I wish this was going to be a better game and I wish I was feeling better. And like literally I started feeling better. My mind was like a little bit sharper and that could have been me just being more confident, but also like, I think God showed up there and we didn't win the game, but I took a victory from that one. So
you still enjoyed it.
Yeah.
You still enjoyed it.
And I just thought that was a really cool moment of God saying like, you go and I'll go. And I think that's a lot of chasing our dreams and our passions is we're like, God, but what if, this is kind of scary and I don't know what's going to happen. And I think he's there saying, I'm right there with you. You show up and I'll show up. So yeah, that's my closing thought.
Yep. That's great. Enjoy life, build God's kingdom. You can do it. I believe in you. Turn your eyes towards Jesus, abide in him, abide in his word. And he says, ask and I will give it to you. So before you ask to move on or before you ask to be somewhere else or for your situation to change, ask for a better perspective. Ask for a godly perspective, a godly attitude, and he will be faithful to you. I guarantee it if you do it with a humble heart. Love you guys. We'll see you next time.